The US Agency for International Development says famine is already likely occurring in the northern Gaza Strip. A mandatory evacuation has been declared for 47 villages and towns in the Kharkiv region on the war's front line. The US Agency for International Development said on Thursday famine is already likely occurring in the northern Gaza Strip. Israel is under heavy international pressure and claims it is expanding access for humanitarian assistance. The IDF claims a brand new land crossing to northern Gaza would open soon. The US has restricted travel for its employees in Israel amid fears of an attack by Iran. Iran vowed to retaliate after Israel struck the Iranian consulate in Syria 11 days ago, killing 13 people. The US embassy said staff had been told not to travel outside the Greater Jerusalem, Tel Aviv or Beersheba areas.
תקיפה משטח איראן תהווה הוכחה ברורה על הכוונות האיראניות להסלים את המזרח התיכון. ולהפסיק להסתתר מאחורי השלוחים. בחודשים האחרונים שיפרנו וקידמנו את יכולות ההתקפה שלנו, ואנחנו נדע לפעול היכן שנדרש.
But the Israeli military's efforts are not supported by ultra-Orthodox Jews who have been fiercely protesting against the likely end of their exemption from military service. Last month, Israel's Supreme Court ordered an end to government subsidies for many ultra-Orthodox men who do not serve in the army. A mandatory evacuation was declared for 47 towns and villages in the Kharkiv region. The settlements are those which are being shelled by Russian forces every day. Authorities stated that they have already agreed evacuation routes and booked places for temporary accommodation of people. Russia has significantly increased its air attacks and shellings in recent months, targeting major Ukrainian infrastructures. In a meeting with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko on Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the strikes are a response to Ukrainian strikes on Russian infrastructure. On Thursday, the European Parliament refused to sign off on a budget attempting to pressure EU leaders to support Ukraine with additional Patriot air defense systems. The Ukrainian parliament on Thursday tightened the rules of military conscription. One of the most controversial points of the new law include no more limits of time of service for soldiers who are already on front lines, including those who have been there since the very start of the war.
The EU Home Affairs Chief has issued a warning to member states. Ylva Johansson says those who fail to enforce the new pact on migration and asylum could face legal action. Johansson spoke with Euronews following the European Parliament's migration policy reform vote.
All member states have to implement it and to apply, and if not, the Commission will of course act and use, if necessary, infringement. But I must say that I'm pretty convinced that member states will implement the pact now quite quickly. They seem to be quite eager to do the implementation, and I'm convinced that they will also apply it.
Johansson says she's confident Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk will abide by the rules. He's voiced firm opposition to the pact, and Johansson rejects claims the new rules will drive human rights violations.
This is very, very clear in the legislation that we're actually strengthening the protection of the fundamental rights of the asylum seekers, the right to apply for asylum, and specific safeguards for the vulnerable ones. So this is a very strong legislation. And I think it's also important to remember that we have a strong support from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, Filippo Grandi, and he was also out yesterday strongly welcoming the pact.
The Commissioner describes cooperation with Libya as difficult. Its Coast Guard is financed by the EU. It has a track record of rights violations.
They are also the ones who have to do the search and rescue. But then we are criticizing what happened with people afterwards, because in these centers that are usually being brought to, we know that the conditions are very dire, I should say unacceptable. And that's why we are calling on the Libyans to change this and to close these centers and to stop this arbitrary detention of migrants in these centers.
Euronews will broadcast the entire interview with Europe's Home Affairs Commissioner over the weekend on the magazine programme Global Conversation.
Skyrocketing price of goods are the top priority for Greek voters ahead of the European elections. People in local markets in Greece say they are disappointed.
Θα επηρεάσει τις εκλογές και βέβαια θα επηρεάσει πολύ αρνητικά προς την κυβέρνηση, γιατί δεν έχει κάνει κάτι για την ακρίβεια, δεν έχει κάνει κάτι για το ηλεκτρικό ρεύμα. Τώρα είπε θα μας βοηθήσει κάπως εμάς τους παραγωγούς, τώρα είπε θα μας βοηθάει κάπως με τα λοιπάσματα, τώρα είπε κάπως. Δεν έχουμε δει μέχρι τώρα τίποτα και οι εκλογές τούτη φορά θα τους τιμωρήσουμε, γιατί δεν κάνανε κάτι για την ακρίβεια.
Η αλήθεια είναι τα τελευταία χρόνια, τα 2 τελευταία τουλάχιστον, 1,5, υπάρχει μεγάλη επιβάρυνση στο πορτοφόλι του καταναλωτή και βλέπεις αυξήσεις τουλάχιστον από ό,τι έχω υπολογίσει εγώ 30%. Αλλά ελπίζω να πάρουν οι αρμόδιοι το μήνυμά τους.
Greece's average growth rate is one of the highest in the Eurozone. Measures taken against inflation don't seem to impact consumers.
Κάθε μέτρο που παίρνει η κυβέρνηση για την μείωση της ακρίβειας είναι θετικό. Το θέμα είναι πόσο αποτελεσματικό είναι αυτό το μέτρο. Κατά την άποψή μου, τα μέτρα αυτά δεν θα φέρουν ουσιαστικό αποτέλεσμα. Οι τιμές όπως διαμορφώνονται στο ράφι, στα βασικά καταναλωτικά αγαθά, φαίνεται ότι είναι πολύ μικρές οι αλλαγές στις τιμές προς τα κάτω. Από την άλλη πλευρά πρέπει να τονίσω ότι και στον χώρο των επιχειρήσεων έχουμε ένα τεράστιο πρόβλημα λόγω του αυξημένου κόστους. Δυστυχώς η εικόνα όμως της αντιπολίτευσης δεν είναι αυτή που θα θέλαμε όλοι μας να είναι. Μια αντιπολίτευση ουσίας, μια αντιπολίτευση που να δίνει κυβερνησιμότητα στον τόπο.
Παρά το γεγονός ότι πριν από 1,5 μήνα ελήφθησαν μέτρα για την αντιμετώπιση της ακρίβειας, οι πολίτες συνεχίζουν να δηλώνουν ότι είναι δυσαρεστημένοι και αυτή τη δυσαρέσκεια θα τη μεταφράσουν στις κάλπες. Είναι ένα ζήτημα το οποίο απασχολεί ιδιαίτερα την κυβέρνηση. Από την Αθήνα για το Euronews, Γιώργος Δημητρόπουλος.
Russian special forces have killed 2 people suspected of plotting terror attacks. The suspects were killed in Nalchik, in the south of the country. The 2, who were killed in a shootout, were suspected of plotting terror attacks, although Russia's anti-terror committee declined to give further details. Russia has been under heightened security following the attack on Crocus City Hall in Moscow. The incident, which killed 145 people, was the worst terror attack in the country in decades. An affiliate of the Islamic State group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The Kremlin has sought to blame the attack on Ukraine without providing specific evidence.
France's government has presented a bill to allow adults with terminal illnesses to take lethal medication, known as euthanasia. There is a growing public demand for legal options for aid in dying, as a growing number of French people travel to neighbouring countries where euthanasia is legal. The bill has been in the pipeline for a long time.
Le premier, c'est d'être majeur. Le second, c'est de résider en France ou d'être de nationalité française. Et 3 conditions qui, elles, feront l'objet d'un examen par un médecin. Ces 3 conditions, c'est d'être atteint d'affections graves et incurables. Grave parce que le pronostic vital est engagé. Incurable parce que la maladie ne peut pas se soigner.
To benefit from the newly proposed measure, patients would need to be over 18 and be French citizens or live in France. Patients will need to prove they are seeking lethal medication of their own free will. Those with severe psychiatric conditions and neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's will not be eligible.
Denmark's Minister for Digital Government Marie Berger has called on Meta, Facebook's parent company, to do more to target fraudulent campaigns. Several well-known Danish TV presenters have been targeted in fake ads, with their photographs and words manipulated. Among the victims was high-profile TV reporter Divya Das.
Det er blevet vildere og vildere, og grovere og mere grænseoverskridende. Jeg tror, det værste ved det er, at Meta tilsyneladende ikke gør noget ved det. Det er mit klare indtryk, at de godt kan. Jeg er sikker på, at det er besværligt, men det kan godt lade sig gøre.
The ads have featured Das's image in fake investment advertisements. One used an image of her with a bruised face, claiming she had been beaten by her husband. Danish authorities are urging all victims to report any abuses of their images to the police.
The Polish government has introduced strict limits on homework in a bid to modernise the country's education system. Teachers are now no longer required to give homework to children in the 1st to the 3rd grades, while homework is now optional for students in grades 4 to 8. Perhaps inevitably, the decree has been warmly received by pupils.
Bo te prace domowe to ich za bardzo nie lubiłam. I tak one trochę nie miały sensu, bo większość osób na przykład z klasy mojej to rano spisywało od kogoś, kto zrobił, albo przepisywało jeszcze z jakichś stron, więc to nie miało sensu.
But not everyone is convinced by the new rules. There's been dismay from within the teaching profession.
Nauczyciele generalnie wychodzą z założenia, że to się stało zbyt szybko, zbyt pośpiesznie, że za mało było takiej rozmowy, za mało było konsultacji, pojawił się imperatyw polityczny i tak, trzeba to było zrobić, a wydawało się, że należało rozmawiać z nauczycielami.
Poland's education system has undergone a number of controversial overhauls, with almost every new government making changes. This has often left parents and teachers confused and discouraged.